It's the Rob Carson Show. Are you ready to be podsmacked? Now, here's Rob Carson.
And here is episode number 81 of the podcast. Welcome, recording this on the 25th of April, 2017. Thank you for joining me today. If you are not listening on iTunes, if you're listening to some of the other places that you can get the show, make sure to check out iTunes. It's the Rob Carson Show on iTunes, and the downloads are appreciated. And we're starting to get more and more. The show is growing in popularity. People are getting it. And so if you would, iTunes, the Rob Carson Show. Also, robcarsonshow.com is my website. I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank Red State Maryland, redmaryland.com, for supporting the show. Redmaryland.com is a terrific blog in the great state of Maryland. Also want to thank our sponsor, which is grassmonsterskc.com, grassmonsterskc.com. They do residential and commercial mowers. They handle Dixie choppers and this other new brand they just got, which is called Hustler mowers. These are American-made, and they kick butt. They are built like something you've never seen before. These things will last you forever. Special financing, at least on the Hustlers, 48 months, 0% financing, which is kind of nice. You can get these mowers anywhere in the country. Dixie Chopper, world's fastest riding lawnmower. I've got one in my garage. It is called the Silver Eagle. It's extraordinary. And then, of course, Hustler is the same. Zero turning radius. They're incredible. They really are. GrassMonstersKC.com, GrassMonstersKC.com. Thank you for being a sponsor of the show. If you would patronize them, that would be great. All right. So Tucker Carlson has taken over for Bill O'Reilly. Looks like some of the clients that had abandoned O'Reilly are on their way back. We'll see what happens with the ratings. You know that when Tucker Carlson took over Megyn Kelly's slot, that sounded weird. Considering what's going on at Fox. No, when he took over her show place, you know what I'm talking about. His ratings, he kicked her butt. Who knows, though, with Tucker Carlson and Bill O'Reilly? I like Tucker Carlson. I think he's great. I've got some sound bites from Tucker Carlson we're going to play here in a little while. He's talking to a Democrat strategist on their approach to Donald Trump and if it's working or not. So we'll get to that very shortly on the show. But it premiered on 8 o'clock Monday night. Apparently 18 national sponsors came back. Some of them, Honda, ExxonMobil, Choice Hotels, BP, Infinity. So that's what's happening there. We will start to get some ratings as the week progresses. By the way, O'Reilly did do a podcast last night on his website, BillO'Reilly.com, and he is essentially refuting the charges of sexual harassment. I've got a couple of sound bites from him last night. And by the way, you'll be able to check out his podcast for free for a week before you become a Bill O'Reilly insider, because the $25 million payout he's getting for Fox obviously can't keep the lights on.
Hey, I miss you guys. Welcome to the No Spin News on BillO'Reilly.com, a completely different experience than what you've had in the past. And everybody is listening this week, or can listen, Monday through Thursday. Next week, we'll go back to just premium members only for the No Spin News, a service for you. So what we're going to do here is about 15 minutes, 12 minutes of the headlines. It's an extended talking points memo that will cover the world each day. And then as we develop the website, we'll have guests and things like that. And this will become longer and longer and longer into a genuine news program.
Okay, now, this will be the fastest growing podcast in America. It will. It'll grow from zero, which it's starting out at zero, to probably 1 million people pretty quickly. O'Reilly says that when the facts come out about the sexual harassment charges, people will be shaken.
I am sad that I'm not on television anymore. I was very surprised how it all turned out. I can't say a lot because there's much stuff going on right now. But I can tell you that I'm very confident the truth will come out. And when it does, I don't know if you're going to be surprised, but I think you're going to be shaken as I am.
Okay. Well, we will see. I don't know. It's very easy to convict somebody in the public forum without the other person being able to face their accuser. All right. I tend to probably lean towards the 5 women who were paid off and the culture of sexuality that exists at Fox News. If you just watch Fox News, I mean, come on, they've got Playboy centerfolds hosting everything. And, they're known for their short skirts. They're known for their hotness. And I'm nothing against that. Use the power of your sexuality, but don't be surprised if somebody looks at the cleavage you're showing, Kimberly Guilfoyle. Sorry, we're guys. So we'll see. One more cut from Bill O'Reilly's podcast last night.
Okay, I don't want the media to take what I say and misconstrue it. And you, as a loyal O'Reilly listener, have a right to know, I think, down the lane what exactly happened. And we are working in that direction, okay? So we're going to have a full week of news analysis here. And we're going to read letters off the message boards. So if you're a premium member, that's going to be like the viewer mail.
Okay, so a premium member will get to listen to Bill O'Reilly for 30 minutes a day. That makes you a premium member. He's going to have to land a TV gig. He's just going to have to land a TV gig. Sean Hannity is going after this woman, this attorney, Debbie Schlussel. She appeared on a radio show in Oklahoma City on Saturday and said that Sean Hannity tried to entice her to come to his hotel room. She has since recanted and said that it wasn't sexual harassment. She just thought he was kind of creepy. He's having none of it. And listen, there are a lot of people in the country who are trying to go after conservative media. They've been going after conservative media figures for years. And last night on Hannity, he basically said he's not going to take it anymore.
Now, I am speaking out tonight so that you, our audience, will understand what is really happening here and what is really at stake when it comes to freedom of speech in this country. Now, these tactics are right out of Saul Alinsky's Rule for Radicals playbook. Now, I've worked in radio for 30 years. I've been right here at the Fox News Channel for 21 and a half years. I'm very proud of that. And during this time, there's always been efforts and attempts to smear and slander and besmirch me and other conservatives, but it has never been as intense and completely...
You've got Media Matters listening to every word that even some local hosts are saying. I've got a buddy named Chris Plant who just launched a nationally syndicated show, and he's been a part of that. They've monitored his broadcast. They monitor them very closely, particularly if you're in Washington, D.C. Mark Levin. Anything they can do to take something out of context and destroy someone, they will absolutely try to do.
Insane as it is right now. Now, I want you to understand, every single minute, every single second, I am on the air, radio, TV, there's somebody likely being paid, recording and monitoring every single word that comes out of my mouth, all in the hopes that I may say something they can twist and distort and use against me and try and destroy my reputation, get my conservative voice off the air.
Yeah, and by the way, also they use boycotts. That's another weapon they use with regard to conservatives. Generally, you don't have to take Rachel Maddow's lines out of context. She says really, really stupid crap on her own. Like the other day when she blamed the Venezuelan protests on Citgo giving $500,000 to Donald Trump's re-inauguration. That's just stupid. That's just stupid. But Hannity's just not, quite simply, not going to take it anymore. He's going to take legal actions. This woman has already backed off. And it doesn't sound like there are any issues with Sean Hannity and sexual harassment at Fox News. It's going to be hard for the real truth to get out about Bill O'Reilly because the money was used to silence the women involved. They can't comment on it because they've been paid. A little more from Sean Hannity last night.
I will fight every single lie about me by any and all legal means available to me as an American. Now, I want you to know, my audience, to understand the importance of what is happening here. This is not about Sean Hannity. This is not about one person. There's now a coordinated attempt to silence the voice of every outspoken conservative in this country.
Now, let's also throw into the mix Milo Yiannopoulos. Not a big fan, by the way. I think he's kind of a snarky queen, kind of a nasty one. Sorry, I'm just being honest. And he calls himself a queen, so I can do that too. But he's just kind of, I don't like him. I think he's a disgusting human being. Ann Coulter, however, I respect and admire. She's written 12 best-selling books, and they are attempting, through violence, to shut her down. Now, in just a second, I'm going to share a little audio on this Howard Dean saying that hate speech is not covered by the First Amendment. I think you're going to, when I tie the threads together on this, it'll make sense. But here's a little more from Mr. Hannity.
We don't stop it right now. There won't be any conservative voices on radio and television left. I'm not the only one that these liberals...
They couldn't do it through the Fairness Doctrine, okay? They tried to silence conservative speech, and successfully, by the way. The IRS was sicked on 501c3 conservative groups before the election of 2010 and 2012 to shut them up. And it worked. And now the latest is to claim that conservative speech is somehow inciting.
Fascists routinely target. Like me, conservatives are monitored on radio and TV, every word they say. And contrary to the alt-radical left stated position, they're so open-minded liberals. Not true.
Not true at all. Open-minded, I used to believe that liberal meant open-minded. At least that's what I was told. It does not mean that. It does not mean that anymore. And I don't even know if liberal has segued into this, okay? Liberal has segued into closed-minded, intolerant. And whenever you hear what they call the right, that's essentially what the left is espouses. When they say that the right is intolerant, they are intolerant. When they say the right is racist, they are racist. They're the ones who want to keep people in the Democrat Party at all costs and are willing to call those of color who try to leave the Democrat Party names like Uncle Tom. A lot of racism. Every time you hear an accusation, realize they're just looking in the mirror and yelling at themselves. Howard Dean. This guy, I tell you what, I'm going to quote from this piece in, I think this is USA Today. Glenn Harlan Reynolds wrote this piece. And it's hate speech is free speech, Governor Dean. The former governor showed himself to be a constitutional illiterate on Twitter. I'm going to get to that in a second. But he appears not to be backing down, even though he is profoundly wrong on the First Amendment. The First Amendment definitely defends hate speech, speech that you hate. That's what it's all about. It's about speech that you hate and that most people hate. It's about protecting that as much as you protect popular speech. Here's Howard Dean doubling down once again on CNN.
Chaplinsky case in 1942 said that speech was not permitted if it included fighting words that were likely to incite violence. So this is not a clear-cut carrying on the way the right does. The right loves to be able to say anything they like, no matter how offensive it is. Well, Ann Coulter has used words that...
No, wait a minute. Did you watch the March for Women? Did you watch Madonna? Did you watch some of the crap that was on stage there?
You cannot use on television to describe Jews, blacks, gays, Muslims, immigrants, and Hispanics. I think there's a case to be made that invokes the Chaplinsky decision, which is fighting words likely to incite violence. And I think Berkeley is within its rights to make the decision that it puts their campus in danger if they...
Okay. These are not fighting words. These are words that someone agrees with so vehemently that they will incite violence against that person. Ann Coulter does not say, come meet me, I'll kick your ass. Ann Coulter exists. She has written books. She is a speaker. This column I think you'll find interesting. It's hate speech is free speech, Governor Dean. Glenn Reynolds. I tell my constitutional law students there are a couple of statements that indicate that a speaker is a constitutional illiterate who can be safely ignored. One is the claim that the Constitution views black people as 3/5 the worth of white people. Okay? Actually, it was all about power in Congress with slave owners wanting black people to count 100% toward apportionment so the slave owners could have more seats in Congress. If you don't know that by now, you're a moron. If you're still quoting that idiotic statistic or line, you are a fool. Okay? The other hallmark of constitutional literacy is the claim that the First Amendment doesn't protect hate speech. And by making that claim last week, Howard Dean, former governor of Vermont and Democratic presidential candidate, revealed himself to be a constitutional illiterate. then he predictably doubled down on his ignorance. In the First Amendment, the term hate speech is meaningless. All speech is equally protected, whether it's hateful or cheerful. It doesn't matter if it's racist, sexist, or in poor taste, unless speech fails or falls into very narrow categories like true threats, which have to address a specific individual, or incitement, which must constitute an immediate and intentional encouragement to imminent lawless action, is protected. Now, the imminent lawless action is being caused by people who want to shut Ann Coulter up. It's not because Ann Coulter has said something to incite them or endanger them. She just said things that they disagree with. Glenn Reynolds. The term hate speech was invented by people who don't like that freedom and who want to give the completely false impression that there's a kind of speech that the First Amendment doesn't protect because it's hateful. What they mean by hateful, it seems, is really just that it's speech they don't agree with. Some even try to argue that since hearing disagreeable ideas is unpleasant, expressing those ideas is somehow an act of violence. You heard this about Mike Pence. Might have been Notre Dame. And there's students circulating a petition that students feel threatened by Mike Pence's appearance as a graduation speaker. That's how they twist the language. That's how they twist the First Amendment and these decisions that this moron, Howard Dean, is quoting. They say they're threatened. They're saying they need a safe space. They're saying it's inciting. The other day, the pro-Trump rally on Berkeley that turned violent when this mob of fascists show up in black shirts and bandanas over their faces. And they said before that by having the pro-Trump rally, you were inciting this violence. No, that's not the case. There was no inciting of violence. There was nothing more than a political viewpoint being espoused. That's it. A support of Donald Trump. That's what it's all about. But this is the technique that has been using to silence opposition, to silence conservative speak, not only in the media, but also on campus. And it's sickening. Back to this piece. The response to Dean was merciless. First Amendment law expert Eugene Volokh responded, "No, Government Dean, this is not hate speech. The hate speech exception of the First Amendment. If there were, neither the Westboro Baptist Church, whose hateful speech the Supreme Court held protected, nor the many people referring to Trump supporters as Nazis and deplorables would be free speech." Okay? When you call Trump supporters Nazis, that's hate speech, folks. Dean then doubled down with the constitutionally illiterate usual fallback that you could ban hate speech as fighting words under the 1942 case of Chaplinsky versus New Hampshire, which allows a ban on fighting words. But fighting words aren't hate speech. Fighting words are direct person-to-person invitations to brawl. And that's good. By reacting violently to views they don't like, people could get the government to censor those views as hate speech or fighting words. That's what people are trying to do. Then people would have a strong incentive to react violently to views they don't like, and then that would further shut them down. Okay? Giving the angry and violent the ability to shut down other people's speech is a bad thing, which would leave us with a society marked by a lot more violence, a lot more censorship, a lot less speech. Sickening. By the way, Glenn Reynolds is a University of Tennessee law professor, and he's also an author as well. So, it's easy to want to shut other people up. It's a whole lot more difficult to defend the speech that you disagree with. Fortunately, there are at least a few people, unlike Howard Dean, a few people on the left who are saying, yeah, you can't do this. One of them is Bill Maher. The other one is, oddly enough, Elizabeth Warren. Howard Dean is a dim wit. Howard Dean, I would say he's a dangerous person, but he doesn't hold sway with much of anything. He's a failed presidential candidate. He's an embarrassment. So fortunately, nobody's really listening to him. Barack Obama's making a comeback. And MSNBC is quite thrilled about it. Yesterday in Chicago, Barack Obama went back to the neighborhood that he tried and admittedly failed to organize. Here he is actually during his talk yesterday about community organizing and how what he did was an abject failure for preventing violence and making the neighborhood better. But that's not That's not stopping him from encouraging people to do the same damn thing.
For 3 years, I tried to do something about it. And I am the first to acknowledge that I did not set the world on fire, nor did I transform these communities in any significant way, although we did some good things.
Okay, so there you go. It's the good intention is what matters. The fact that money was wasted and time was wasted does not matter. The fact that the outcome was lousy doesn't matter. There was no outcome whatsoever. The fact that Chicago was worse than ever as far as violence is concerned, it was the good intentions of a community organizer that matters. If this were any other kind of movement that resulted in no positive action or outcome, it'd be shredded. You know, you talk about the war on drugs. It's not been successful. It's shredded. But the good, the intention of the war on drugs was good, right? So that makes it a positive, right? A little more from Barack Obama yesterday in Chicago. Yeah, I'm surprised he remembered how to get there.
Have a situation in which everybody's listening to people who already agree with them.
Okay, now he is targeting people who listen to conservative media and watch conservative media. That's what he's targeting. He's not saying people who just watch CNN, read the New York Times, that sort of thing, or ABC or CBS or NBC or PBS.
And are further and further reinforcing their own realities to the neglect of a common reality that allows us to have a healthy debate.
This is faculty lounge mental masturbation. It's verbose, it's pensive, and it's stupid.
And then try to find common ground and actually move solutions forward.
This coming from the most polarizing president in the history of the White House.
And so, when I said in 2004 that there were no red states or blue states, they're the United States of America, that
oh, dear God.
was an aspirational comment, but I think
He divided the country more than anyone on lines of race, on lines of socioeconomic status, sexuality.
And it's one, by the way, that I still believe in the sense that when you
don't.
talk to individuals one-on-one.
No, you don't.
There's a lot more people have in common than divides them.
Oh, God, here we go again.
But obviously it's not true when it comes to our politics and our civic life. And maybe more pernicious is the fact that people just aren't involved. They get cynical and they give up. And
I'd say that the Republican Party and the supporters of Donald Trump were pretty involved.
As a consequence, we have some of the lowest voting rates of any advanced democracy, and low participation rates then translate into a further gap between who's governing us and what we believe.
Okay, again, nonsensical. Nonsensical falderall, ladies and gentlemen. That's my opinion. If you'd like to write me with a different opinion, carsonontheradio@gmail.com. Once again, to remind you, a sponsor of the show is Grass Monsters KC. They do commercial mowers. They do residential mowers. They sell a couple of different brands, Dixie Chopper and Hustler. Don't they just sound badass? Don't they just sound amazing? If you live in the Kansas City area and you're considering a mower, don't get one of the ones that are chained up outside of the big box store. Go to Raytown, 5520 Raytown Road. Take one of these for a little spin around the yard there, around the driveway there. You're going to be blown away. It's an investment, whether it be for your home, whether it be for your business. If you're a landscaper, you own a company, they are built like a brick, you know what? Lifetime frame warranty, bumper-to-bumper warranties, 2 years to 4 years, and 0% financing for 48 months, at least on the Hustler. See Grass Monsters KC for details, grassmonsterskc.com. Now, MSNBC talked about the desperation of the Democrat Party and what the Obama comeback, they're calling this a comeback. The guy's been on vacation since January the 20th. Did you know, the guy has been on a 3-month vacation. Really? No, yes, being the president, toughest job in the world. Not tough enough to keep you from playing 400 rounds of golf. But a 3-month vacation, really?
The Obama team is signaling that he is not going to take on President Trump directly, that's not what this is about.
No, they'd much rather do it by having people in the administration, holdovers from the Obama administration, leaking to Congress members and the press.
About former President Obama.
It's a way to do it, folks.
Sitting down with young people, talking about civic engagement, getting involved in their communities.
Again, this is all things that resulted in bore no fruits for the neighborhoods that Barack Obama was involved in.
So forth. But obviously, we're in some uncharted waters here. It's a very unusual situation. You have a very popular former president who's just 55, very vigorous, planning to get out there, out on the public stage in some way.
Or on the $500 million yacht that he hung out with last week.
Have a President Trump, whose administration is so diametrically opposed and is dismantling so many things that President Obama spent 8 years putting together, like Obamacare, like policies on immigration.
All of them failed, by the way.
The environment, so on and so forth.
All of them failed.
So that's the big question. What will President Obama say? What will he do? But the signal is that he's going to not get involved in the day-to-day give and take.
No. He's got plenty of people to do that. He just sends the marching orders.
Of back and forth between President Trump. He doesn't want to set himself up as a foil for President Trump.
Oh, dear God.
But again, his supporters, advocates, those who back President Obama, they really want to hear from him. Democrats are somewhat desperate, you might even say. Yeah. They're demoralized by the results of the election.
Yes.
They see a hero in President Obama, and the question is whether he will play that big role, that big opposition leader role that so many of his supporters want.
Okay, he's done. Okay, he's no longer the president. All right, he's done. Hillary Clinton is done. If you're desperate, find some new leadership. Look forward rather than looking back. Look forward. Don't look back. By the way, I just heard from Barack Obama saying that we need to come together and we need to where there's no red state and blue state and all this. Remember when he said this in 2000? I think this was 2007.
I need you to go out and talk to your friends and talk to your neighbors. I want you to talk to them whether they're independent or whether they are Republican. I want you to argue with them and get in their face.
Nice. Here's another example.
This quote from the president back in 2008. This was when he was on the campaign trail, everybody. He says, quote, they're going to try to scare people. They're going to try to say that Obama is a scary guy. If they bring a knife to the fight, we bring a gun.
Now, wait, whoa. Are those fighting words? Those sounded like fighting words. If they bring a knife to the fight, we bring a gun. That's kind of fighting words there, Mr. Dean. It's kind of fighting words, wouldn't you say? A little more on the president. He's going to be cashing in by speaking to a Wall Street lunch conference later this year. Going to be making $400,000 for a 45-minute speech for Cantor Fitzgerald in September. Okay? This is according to Fox Business Network. We understand that he's going to be the keynote speaker for a lunch, and he's going to receive $400,000. That hefty payout, which is roughly 7 times the median household income in the U.S., puts Obama in the same league as Bill Clinton on the lucrative presidential speaking circuit. But unlike Clinton, Obama was a vocal critic of Wall Street as president. Okay? He blamed the big banks for the 2008 recession. By the way, he's also an advocate for climate change and reducing and a carbon tax, by the way, even though he spent a week on a $500 million yacht. Here's Barack Obama in 2008 about Wall Street bankers.
I did not run for office to be helping out a bunch of fat cat bankers on Wall Street.
Well, you'll take their $400,000, though.
The ones that are going to be paying out these fat bonuses are the ones that have now paid back that TARP money. And
do you think that's why they paid it back so quickly?
I think in some cases that was a motivation, which I think tells me that the people on Wall Street still don't get it. They don't get it.
What about you? What about you, sir, not getting it?
They're still puzzled. Why is it that people are mad at the banks? Well, let's see. You guys are drawing down $10-20 million bonuses after America went through the worst economic year that it's gone through in decades.
Now, how many CEOs make $400,000 an hour? Honestly, $400,000 an hour makes a $20 million annual bonus look like child's play.
And you guys caused the problem? And we got 10% unemployment? Why do you think people might be a little frustrated?
No, the action of Congress in the Clinton administration is what caused it. The Community Reinvestment Act, which gave homes and forced banks to give loans to people who couldn't afford them. That's what it was all about. The hypocrisy is stunning to me. Now, you've heard about this Washington Post poll that says that Donald Trump has a terrible approval rating. 47% of Americans disapprove. But at the same time, the poll said if the election were held today, Donald Trump would not only win the popular vote, but he'd also win the Electoral College all over again. Well, according to this poll, the number of people who believe the economy is improving is at a 15-year high. Why didn't that go up during the hope and change of the Obama administration? Trump's first months in the Oval Office have produced some tangible results, successes, I should say, according to the Post. Beyond the continued enthusiasm of his most loyal supporters, a small majority of Americans see him as a strong leader, a small majority. A bigger majority approves of his efforts to pressure U.S. companies to keep jobs in the country. Okay. His approval rating among Republicans who cast vote for him, or anybody who cast votes for him, 94%. Among Republicans, it's 84%, by the way. Asked about those who voted for him, whether they regret to do so, 2% said. 2% said, So what's the Democrat Party going to do? Tucker Carlson, in his new time slot on Fox News, spoke on premiere night with Richard Goodstein, a former Clinton campaign advisor. And the Democrat Party, rather than looking forward, is looking back, and they're hoping that essentially that Donald Trump will be impeached. That's their hope. It's not that they have a brilliant leader or someone or a new philosophy. Although Bernie Sanders has acknowledged what the Democrats are spewing right now is falling on deaf ears with their supporters. 67% of Democrats do not like the direction of the party. That said, they're going to continue the negative campaigning after the election.
Is the strategy of defining Trump as a puppet of the Kremlin and his voters as racist, is that bearing fruit for you guys? Is that working out for you?
Yeah. Okay, now Tucker's going to talk about something that I have been saying for a while with regard to Trump and Russia. There is no reason why the Russians, and I said this before the election, there's no reason why the Russians would not prefer Hillary Clinton over Donald Trump. She was an incompetent boob when she was Secretary of State. She did that idiotic reset button. She projected, and the Obama administration projected weakness. The Russians like weakness. And Donald Trump, even during the campaign, he said, I don't know, Vladimir Putin. I think he's a strong leader. And he is a strong leader. I'm not saying a positive and strong in a positive way. But he did, and he made no bones about the fact that he was more of a hawk with regard to the United States. Here's a little more from this guy on Tucker's show.
Well, I mean, I think it's working out. First of all, put the racist stuff aside, okay?
Well, it's kind of hard to do that since your last candidate called them racist, and every Democratic leader since then has called them racist.
And by the way, I wouldn't have voted for Donald Trump if I thought that he was a racist.
So clearly it's not working, is it?
We'll find out when this Russia investigation is over whether or not he engaged in treasonous behavior or it was merely his campaign staff, because what the FBI director...
They're going to find a big fat nothing. Because the Obama administration was surveilling Russians, or at least saying they were surveilling Russians, as an excuse to listen into the Trump campaign and the Trump transition team. And listen, this started more than a year ago. If anything substantive would have been gathered, it would have been unveiled before the election, and Hillary Clinton wouldn't have had her ass handed to her.
Said that's what's under investigation.
That's got to be some big hands, too, by the way.
You're still going with that treasonous behavior?
Well, we know that. I mean, that's by definition.
No, you don't. No, you don't. You don't know treasonous behavior. You have no high crimes and misdemeanors. There's nothing there. I hate to use a nothing burger. There you go. I said
so
it.
I didn't even want to go here because I like you, and I didn't think you really believe that. It's hard to tell whether it's a talking point or whether it's a symptom of something.
No.
But so here you have a president who has moved the United States into real conflict with Russia by bombing Syria.
Yeah.
And the Russians themselves are saying we've never been closer to war in the past 20 years. Right. That's what collusion looks like?
Yeah, that's collusion. The Russians wanted him in the White House. This is probably all just a big bait and switch. It just, they're winking and nodding. They're doing the glad handshake in the back room. And this is all bluster, right? This is all bluster. Going against the Russians' wishes and bombing a Syrian air base where they were launching sorties with chemical weapons. That was all bluster, little handshake. It's all about oil, right? So not only is there the wishful thinking that Donald Trump will be impeached without any evidence. All right. That's one part of the Democrats' new strategy. This guy also points out all the protests going around the country as proof that people are being motivated and are not happy with Donald Trump and the future of the country. And I'll explain why that's bankrupt in just a second.
And so I'm just looking for some glimmer that Democratic talking points are not simply aimed at Tom Steyer here, that it's not just donors you're talking to, but voters. What's the pitch to voters? How are you going to raise their wages?
The evidence that voters are actually responding to whatever.
I don't know. Well, no. How are you going to raise their wages? That was the question here. Let's hear the question again. Here it is.
Donors you're talking to, but voters. What's the pitch to voters? How are you going to raise their wages?
The evidence that
Completely
voters are
glossed
actually
over.
responding to whatever the Democratic message is was the Women's March the day after the inauguration. Was even this march this past weekend.
Okay. 70 leftist organizations were involved in the Women's March. Women who are pro-life were excluded. Conservative groups were excluded. That was a protest that was bought and paid for. It was made to be some sort of a movement for women. It did not involve all women. It was not about women's issues. It was about leftist women's issues, abortion, people who didn't vote for Trump, people who voted for Hillary. That's what that was all about. As far as this tax day protest where people want Donald Trump's taxes to be unveiled, nobody gives a crap. These protests were tiny, and they were manned by people who were being paid by groups, anti-Trump groups. And we're seeing this again and again and again. And it'll change to something else next week. There will be a massive march for whatever, made up out of thin air and supported by leftist groups and busing and protesters who are paid. These are not average voters.
Around the country. Right. And the fact that these town hall meetings, people are showing energy.
People are showing up at town hall meetings because they are being paid to show up at town hall meetings. That's it. There's this massive outcry about repeal of Obamacare. No, not so much. It's a load of crap. They come there with and they scatter throughout the crowd. They follow Saul Alinsky tactics to take over meetings and act like the American voters are outraged, and they're not. That's why people in the country believe the economy is improving at the highest level in 15 years. Consumer confidence is up. Confidence in the military is up. If the whole country were burning down, then I could see that town halls like this. But this is made up.
What's the point of the Women's March? I'm not attacking it, okay? I guess all my neighbors went. But what was if you could narrow down...
I'm not afraid to attack the Women's March, and I've lost friends because of it on Facebook.
To one policy point.
It's a joke.
That the March on Washington was for the Civil Rights Bill. I get it. The Women's March, again, not attacking it, but I'm a little confused as to how it articulates the Democratic vision.
Donald Trump demeaned women. I'm putting Access Hollywood aside.
Bill Clinton
demeaned women throughout the campaign. And this was an affirmation saying, we're not going away. You're going to have to deal with us. You may not believe that, but that's in a nutshell what that was about.
If you could deal with this fact, Donald Trump won the majority of white women in the last election. What do you mean? Are they stupid? Are they voting in their own interests? Are they crazy? Are they bigots? I mean, how do you account for that behavior?
I mean, you disagree with me. The Comey letter is what tipped that scale.
Okay, it was the Comey letter. It was the Comey letter. Oh, listen, Democrats, God bless you. But honestly, if you're happy with the direction of the party, you're going to be losing elections. You're going to lose the midterms. You're going to lose the midterms. That's just it. Then you're going to lose the next presidential. There were a lot of positives, despite the 93% of coverage of Donald Trump being negative, and it is 93%, is negative. Is there a surprise that 47% of Americans strongly disagree with him? with a constant barrage of anti-Trump. He's failing. People are rejecting it. People are showing up at town halls. People are showing up at marches, not asking any questions about where these people come from, not asking if they're bought and paid for, just accepting, just saying, okay, the country is on fire. No, it's not. It's not. I think we're going to wrap things up on this podcast. I'm going to be doing number 82 in a little while. 82 is going to focus a little bit more on less political things. But I hope you've enjoyed this one so far. I want to thank you so much for all of your support. I want to thank you for checking it out again. iTunes at the Rob Carson Show. I've got a bunch of folks working with me. Oh, also, let's not forget the politically incorrect gear. I am working with a designer named Sam Cangelosi, and we put together this gear on teepublic.com, teepublic.com. And just look up Conservatees, Conservatees. We've got some new Kansas City designs. We've got some great stuff for the state of Maryland. We've got some great national stuff. Some political, some not political. All cool. T-shirts, hoodies, phone cases, laptop cases, and even tanks and onesies for your baby. They're really terrific. If you would, please order. Get some bumper stickers. Buy 100 bumper stickers. If you're involved, if you're a part of a pack or you're part of a group, please buy a bunch of them. I think you're really going to enjoy it. I think you really, really are. In the meantime, you can write me, Carson, on the radio, gmail.com, the website, robcarsonshow.com, and on Facebook at Rob Carson Show. God bless. Episode number 82, real soon.
Thanks for listening to The Rob Carson Show. Friend him on Facebook at Carson Show, on Twitter at Rob Carson, and on Instagram, I think Facebook and Twitter are enough for now. We'll see you soon.